Hello, I'm Jery Jimmy, and I'm a student of Christ deemed to be University, Bengaluru, awaiting my results for the Bachelor of Arts in Journalism, Psychology and English Literature. Education is one of the most important factors in the life of an individual. An effective learning process, an effective educational system can bring out responsible citizens of the country. At the same time, a defective educational system or a defective process of learning can bring out absolute chaos in the life of the individual as well as the society that surrounds him. As a sad fact, in our nation, this importance of the learning process or the educational system is belittled. In Sanskrit, there is a very old saying, Acharyat padam adyate, padam shishya swamedhaya, padam sabrahmacharipya, padam kala kramenacha, which can be explained thus. The different levels of learning. At the first level or the primary level of education happens with the knowledge that is acquired from the teacher. At the second level, the individual learns by himself, by his own effort. At the third level, the individual learns from his peer groups, from the society and from his interaction with others. And the fourth and the final level of education or the fourth level of gaining knowledge is in course of time through the experience of the individual. Thus, learning process is not single dimensional. Learning process is not just restricted to the academic platform of learning, but rather is influenced by very important factors such as interaction with others, the self-pursuit of knowledge, and the contact with the world. The individual also learns a lot from the atmosphere that he lives in, from the society that he lives in, and in course of time, he picks up cues from the society to what is right and what is wrong. The educational system in India needs a lot of changes to make them effective. And as I said in the court earlier, the primary stage or primary level of knowledge is the knowledge that is acquired from the teachers. Thus, if a change is to be initiated in the educational system of India, the starting of that change should be from the teachers. I am an aspiring teacher. And there was a very small but very emotional and impactful experience in my life that forced me to choose this profession. A few years back, I was a trainer or an animator in a non-governmental organization which was a destitute home for around 100 boys. They were not orphans, but then students who did not have the financial position to go to a school and learn. So I was an animator for such students. I joined the institution as an animator and I was full of enthusiasm and full of excitement. Being it my first assignment, I thought, yeah, I'm going to change the world. With my effort, with my contribution, these students are going to come out with glorious marks in their 10th grade and yeah, I'll be in the top of the world. That was my expectation. But as time went by, I understood that the process was not easy. In the first week of my duty in the institution, I found that the students lacked a lot in mathematics. So I wanted to teach them, especially the 10th graders who were going to face their board exams in a few months. So I started with the multiplication table. I thought, like a little bit of boosting, a little bit of attention given to them can make a lot of change. As I said earlier, I was very enthusiastic and I was almost sure that I will change the world in this one single act. So I was all set for my first act of teaching. I went to the class, saw the students, and I asked them about the multiplication table. So since they were in 10th, I assumed in 4 days they can at least by heart the multiplication table properly. And I gave them 4 days of time. 3 days passed, and all 3 days I was so excited, so enthusiastic to find the results of my first endeavor in the field of education. I was awaiting the day when my students would be able to recite the multiplication table without a mistake. 4th day came in and it was a mighty blow on the head of my excitement and enthusiasm. None of the 20 students of 10th grade, none of them had learned the multiplication table. I was so depressed, I was sad, I felt demotivated. I told them, okay, you do your homework that was due for tomorrow, and then I sat down back in my chair. So physically, I have a condition wherein, when I yawn, when I am sleepless, when I am tired, my eyes get filled. 2 days prior to this, like the previous 2 days, I had not slept well. So I was feeling very sleepy, and I was also very tired. And on top of that, I was demotivated and was feeling sad about the fact that my first step towards changing the world failed. So I was sitting there back in my chair, very depressed, and my face also was showing the depression that I had. So there was one boy at the corner of the class at the end of the bench. He was looking at me very keenly. His name was Kamal. And that child was looking at me very intensely. I looked at him and I found that, why is this boy looking at me like this? I tried to force a smile out of my face, but then I think I failed. So after the class, after the tuition hours, the tutoring hours, I walked out of the class, and then this small boy, it's not a small boy actually, he was 18, he joined the school late because he did not have the financial resources to join a school. So he was already 18 and he was in his 10th grade. So he ran to me, his eyes full of tears, he was weeping loudly, and he just hugged me. And I actually did not understand what happened. So since it was a boys' home, a destitute home, I thought maybe he had a fight with some of his peers, and then that's why he was crying and he was coming to me to complain about the event. But then to my greatest surprise, this boy cried his heart out and he told, Chemu, yeah, that's how they address me, Chemu. Okay? He told me, Chemu, this is the first time that I've seen somebody cry for me. All my life, all these 18 years that I lived, I've made fun of others, I've hurt others, I've told bad words to others, I've been rude to others, and I've seen them cry. But then I've never seen anybody cry because I did not study. I did not find anybody crying for my improvement or my growth. And you are the first person who did that. I actually did not understand what happened. I took a minute or two for me to realize that this boy thought that the tears that I had in my eyes because of the fatigue, because of the drowsiness that I had, the boy thought that these tears were because this child did not learn. He thought that I was sad, I was depressed, I was feeling completely sad, I was crying because this child did not study. And what happened next even more surprised me. He told me that from the last 1 year, he was an addict to alcohol and smoking, which none of us knew. He told that his friends had put him into this, and that he was an addict to alcohol, that he was consuming alcohol almost every day. And he promised that just because you cried for me, you are the first person who cried for me, I understand that you care for me, but for this, I'm telling you, I'm stopping. I'm completely stopping this addiction. I'm trying my best to overcome this. Even though I did not give much of a hope to this, because I was actually afraid. My first step towards educating a child failed. So I did not place much hopes on this child's stopping consuming alcohol or smoking. But in the coming days, I actually saw a complete transformation. From being the most notorious student in the institution, this child turned out to be the most obedient and most hardworking student. And at the end of the year, the same student who was sitting at the corner of the class, who had not passed even a single exam all his 8 years in his life, and who always scored digit marks in his exams, passed out of the 10th grade successfully, without even a single back paper. And I was the proudest man on earth at that point, because I knew that this very insignificant tear that I had in my eyes, and that was not even from concern, it was just from sleepiness and fatigue, that changed this boy. And then I thought, if a very small, insignificant act of mine can create such a change in an individual's life, such a change in a child's life, how much more can a dedicated teacher, how much more can a very sincerely working trainer change the life of an individual? Even a very insignificant act of a trainer, of a teacher, of an educator can have tremendous impact in the life of an individual. It can be either positive or negative, but then the effect would be tremendous. Years passed, I joined my bachelor's degree in Christ deemed to be university. It was the third year, and then I had a subject in English literature, which was English language training. Since I was into teaching, I was an aspiring teacher, I joined this course, ELT. As part of the academic requirements of this course, we had to do a research. And the topic that I chose for my research was the English language learning process in the schools in Kerala. I did this research through various surveys and questionnaires among the students and teachers of the Kerala schools. The results show that most of the students were very good in writing English. They could write grammatically structured and grammatically correct English. They could also read and understand English, but when it came to speaking or reproducing what they had in their mind, they failed. They found it very difficult to speak English. Why? This was my research. And the reasons for this, what I found was that in case of Malayalam in Kerala as such, since it is our mother tongue, we start with listening to Malayalam first. We listen to Malayalam, we listen to various slangs, various words used, various sounds produced in Malayalam, and then we try to speak. We try to imitate what we hear, we try to speak. And then we go to school where we start writing, we start reading. And that was the process of learning. But in terms of English, we get acquainted with English only when we go to school. At school, what we first do, especially in Kerala, in the atmosphere, educational atmosphere of Kerala, is that we go to school, we sit there, the first thing that's given to us is A, B, C, the alphabets. We write them, but we don't hear English properly. We don't listen to proper English. And so, we are not able to reproduce that. The first thing that is imprinted on our mind is writing skills in English, and we do master that. But then, when it comes to speaking English or reproducing what we have, the language that we have, we always fail. And the reason for this is very simple. We don't have an atmosphere where we can use, where we can put what we have in our life, in our mind to practice. We know the basic rules of English language, we know the grammatic rules, we know how it is to be structured, we know how it is used. But then, we don't have a platform, we don't have an ambience, an atmosphere where we can put this knowledge into practice. And that's why most of us, especially from students from Kerala, fail to speak in English properly. So, I think as an aspiring teacher, the most important factor, the most important job of a teacher is creating an atmosphere, creating an ambience where the student can put into practice what he or she has learned. And if any of you teachers who are out there watching this, my suggestion to you is this: if you are able to create an atmosphere where the students can put what they learned into practice, then you will be the best teacher in the world. If this speech of mine can create a spark in any one of the teachers, and if they can create a change in at least in one student, I will be the proudest man on earth. Thank you.